Hi, this is Dan Root with QT Equipment, and I'm standing here with two IMT SiteStar Lube trucks. And you can tell they're different. This one's obviously older than this one, but I bet you can't guess how much older. This truck was built in August of 2012, and this truck was built in May of 2013. So by process of math, I think that's 9 months. The difference is this truck here has been through our refurbishment process, and this truck is just getting going. The IMT Lube trucks are so well built that even though the chassis is spent after 8, 9, 10 years, the equipment is still in really good shape. And so refurbishment allows you to bring that equipment back to its former glory for a lot less than the replacement cost. The first step when we get these projects in is to test everything and see what works and what doesn't work. In this case, we needed to replace all the reels, all the nozzles, because they were just in really poor condition, and we didn't feel good about those lasting 7, 8, 9 more years in the field. Some of the components, like the pump tower, that thing is practically bulletproof, and it's easy to get a second life out of. And this filter drain box, you clean it up, repaint it, there's nothing wrong with that. So it really is a case-by-case basis. You can't just take a checklist and say, we do this all the time. There are some things that we will obviously want to replace without question, and that would be things like the lights. But you can look at the roll-up door. Some of them are beat and just need replaced. Some of them are in pretty good shape. The guideline that we go by is really to spend the customer's money the way we would spend our own money. And we don't want to over-replace things just to drive the bill up. On the other hand, we don't want to cheap out on an inexpensive part and then have a problem 4 or 5 years down the line. We're going to highly recommend that you consider a new chassis on any of these projects. What you don't want to do is get a mismatch between your equipment's in great shape, but then another year or two you blow an engine, transmission, something like that. We're trying to get you a like new piece of equipment out in the field, and a new chassis is really the ideal way to go for that. So new chassis, new pump and PTO, and then we're going to take a look at the body, and this one looks in pretty good shape for a 9-year-old body. We're going to take and cut out a lot of the seam sealer and address the rust areas before we go ahead and repaint the sides. The outside, we want that to look brand new, especially for an equipment dealer. You've got an image. You want to present some professionalism when you show up to the customer's job site. So we want the outside to look excellent. Usually on these projects, we go ahead and replace all the latches. It's a fairly inexpensive item, and we want to make sure that you don't have latch problems in the future. Also, we're going to take a look at these hinges. Any hinges that are bent, or in this case, we're missing a bolt there, we're going to go ahead and replace those. You can see the condition of the inside of this compartment here is pretty dingy. Rather than go through and repaint this whole compartment, which is going to take a lot of time and be fairly expensive, we're going to do our best to clean all this up, and then any spots that have rubbed through to the metal, we've got some compartment coating that we can touch up and make it look pretty good. But if this is just full of rags and filters and things like that, you probably don't care how good it looks. You just want to make sure that you're not going to have any rust problems in the future. Up in the tank area here, on this project, we've replaced all the poly tanks. These are the IMT plastic tanks that they've been running for a while. The poly tanks, and this is shot in March of 2021, we're having some supply problems with getting those tanks. They do clean up very well. It's pretty time consuming to clean them up and make sure that everything is tip-top shape on those, but they do clean up pretty well. In this project, though, we had enough tanks available to just go ahead and do a replacement on them. The air compressor on this truck, we've actually replaced with a new compressor. And again, that's one of those things that we will evaluate on a case-by-case basis. If we use your existing compressor, we'll tear it apart and make sure that everything's good and do the service on it. Make sure that it's going to build good air for an extended period of time, even if it's a used compressor. One of the no-brainers on these projects is replacing the fittings and the hose. We don't want to get ourselves into a situation where we're trying to be penny wise and pound foolish, trying to save the customer money and then ending up costing them more money down the line. Replacing all the fittings and all the hose is pretty standard on these projects. These IMT Lube bodies are very well built and an excellent candidate for refurb. If you've got one of these, we would take a look at other manufacturers too, but IMT Lubes are kind of our bread and butter for refurbs. If you've got a fleet of those and you want to consider refurbishment, you've probably got a couple of questions. Number one is how long, and number two is how much. The how long question, these projects take 4 to 8 weeks, depends on how far we have to go with everything. And then how much, it's really hard to say without seeing the truck or at least some pictures of the truck. But we will promise you this, that we won't take weeks and weeks and weeks to get you an answer on that. You are going to save a significant amount of money versus buying new with refurbishment. And especially if you go with a new chassis, which is what we recommend, you're going to be able to put this equipment back in the field for another 10, 12 years, no problem. If you have any questions on refurbs or you want to see the custom service trucks that we're building, a couple of ways you can find us: on Instagram at QT Equipment, Facebook QT Equipment, or our website qtequipment.com. Work dirty, be happy. Until next time. These hinges, they get used a lot, and we don't want to have a problem a couple of years down the road. Also, that's a latch, dummy.